So reading is an essential habit for many students, and there are many reasons why a lot of people recommend that students should be reading. At the start of my college career, many years ago, I really enjoyed reading books, specifically hardcover books. There's a sense of immeasurable pleasure that comes from reading a physical book and flipping the physical page from front to back. It's just a wonderful experience. And also, there's that new book smell that we all have come to love and enjoy. I especially love going to the local bookstore and browsing endlessly for books that might pique my interest. And I love collecting them and displaying them next to my bed or maybe on a bookshelf to really get a visual representation of all the books I've read in a given year. But last month or so, as I was scrolling through my credit card statement, I noticed that I was spending a lot of money on physical books, much more than I'm comfortable with. So in an effort to reduce costs down, I essentially downloaded an app on my iPad Pro. It is the Kindle e-reading app, and I transitioned to e-reading for a little bit. And in this video, I'm going to be describing some reasons on why some students should opt to adopt e-reading into their daily habits. So costs in recent years for me have been a huge factor. Right now, my rent for this very nice apartment is about 50% of my income from student loans. And so I realized that I needed to start being more frugal about my spending, otherwise I'm going to be drowning financially speaking. Books, especially paperback books, if you buy brand new, are very expensive. Kindle versions for books that I enjoy, such as Deep Work by Cal Newport or Can't Hurt Me by Dave Goggins, are 40 to 50% cheaper on the Amazon website compared to Barnes & Noble's, or if you were to go buy them in a bookstore. For me, I realize what matters in a book the most is the information that you gain from it, not necessarily the fancy paper or the pleasure of reading the book, although they are somewhat important. On the topic of cost, I'm also a victim of impulse buying. A lot of my friends can vouch for that. And it's really bad for me to go into a bookstore without an idea in mind of what I want to buy, because I get tempted by all the nice books that are on the bookshelf and want to see a book with a nice cover. I read the book for like 1 to 2 minutes and then I decide to buy it and I lose some money. But with the Kindle, you see a black and white cover on all the books you read. And you are forced to judge a book, therefore, not by its cover, but by the content you gain from it or will have gained from it. So ultimately, I find myself doing a lot more research on the books I want to buy on the Kindle store, as opposed to the books that I would buy in a regular bookstore. So portability and subjective motivation. What does it really mean? Well, e-reading, as we know, is extremely portable. That's a hard fact, right? It's just so much more easy to carry on something like this than say something like this hardcover book I bought 2 weeks ago because I caved in, and I'm not a very good person of my words. Anyways, but what's more subjective is that I find myself reading more on a tablet than I do on paperback, and I still don't know precisely why. My guess is that it has to do with text sizes on a Kindle. By having a larger text size, I'm somehow able to sort of read faster, and that sort of helps me stay motivated. The text presented on the Kindle, as you know, is not exactly one-to-one compared to the text you would find on a regular book. There was actually an old study done by Wichita State University, hopefully I pronounced that right, studying the effects of font size and reading time, but on older adults. So on 27 adults, so n equals 21, the researchers asked them to read a small passage on a computer screen, but 10 of the words in the small passage had grammatically incorrect substitutions. So what does that mean? Well, for example, the sentences that should be read as, for example, I like to drink a chocolate shake, might be presented as I like to drink a chocolate fake. So the score for the participants was the percentage of accurately detected substituted words in the passage divided by the time to read the passage as a whole. So the participants can't just be speed reading through the entire passage and reading the entire study. The results show that font size improved reading speed, unsurprisingly, right? For instance, changing the font size from 12 to 14 resulted in a 30-second increase in reading speed. Obviously, I'm not an old adult yet, but I definitely find myself reading a lot faster on the Kindle than a paperback, and overall that keeps me pretty motivated. So Kindle and e-reading is a piece of technology, and with any technology, there's always some really nifty features. My favorite functionality by far is the highlight feature for e-reading. If you've ever watched Ali Abdaal's video titled How I Remember Everything I Read, he actually brought up a really good website called readwise.io that you can use. Readwise, in case you missed the video, is a website that lets you keep track of your highlights across various websites like news articles, so like CNN, New York Times, and on top of that, the highlights you make on your Kindle app or any other e-reading app. And the great thing about that is that it can send you reminders of your highlights on a certain time interval, say daily, say weekly, or say monthly. And it goes into your inbox and you just read it in the morning or read it in the afternoon whenever you have time. And the idea is that by constantly reading your highlights, you are reminded of the lessons of the material you read, and it becomes more ingrained in your memory. The downside of Readwise, however, is that it does cost $4.49 a month, which isn't too expensive, but it's definitely not good if you're a student on a budget. Always think about $4.50 a month, so you take $4.50 times 12, which is what again? So that's $54 a year. And if you think about it, Spotify Student is also $5 a year. So in the end, you are deciding between having a better experience listening to music offline, which is the best functionality of Spotify, and or improving yourself through the material you read in a given book. So that's all I have for the video, and now I'll give my personal experience switching to e-reading. So I mentioned some of the things already. I read a lot faster through digital books compared to paperback books, but one thing I really did miss, again, was the experience of actually flipping the pages of a book, going through it, marking it up, and interacting with the material. And so what I've realized is that I can actually have the best of both worlds, right? So with books that are nonfiction based, so books that are more like self-productivity or books that are on like self-help, in that genre, I like to have them more for e-reading. So like with those books, I'm able to highlight them on my Kindle and upload them onto Readwise, and then it'll send me a weekly reminder about my highlights so I can keep up to date with those ideas. On the other hand, with books that I read for fun, for example, I have a book right here, Medieval Bodies. This is more for pleasure, you know. It's not a book you really use, or it's not a book you really read for remembering content 5 to 10 years from now, as opposed to some of the other self-help books. So that's been my experience. I've realized that for me, the best way to approach this is to have a hybrid system where I read more books for pleasure as paperbacks and books that are more on self-help or more on content-based, that have more content in them on my e-reader. So that's all I got for the video. I know I've been gone for a long time. Hopefully I'll have more videos, and happy Thanksgiving everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.